Hello, welcome to this space of calm. You do not need to do anything special now, nor arrive with prepared answers. This moment is just for you, to pause for an instant and release the weight of the day. Sometimes we move forward without realizing how much we are carrying. We fulfill obligations, respond, keep going, but something inside us slowly falls silent. It does not always hurt. It is not always noticeable, but it is there. A subtle sense of disconnection, of walking without a clear direction, even when everything seems to be in order. Tonight we are not seeking quick solutions or perfect explanations. We are simply creating a safe space to rest, breathe, and listen to what is usually pushed aside. Allow yourself to slow down. Allow yourself to be here. Now, little by little, let the body relax and the mind grow still. Everything else can wait. You've made it this far, and that is enough for now. You don't need to carry an explanation with you or justify how you feel. This moment doesn't ask for clarity, only presence. There are stages in life when everything seems to move forward normally, yet something inside stops keeping pace. There is no single event to explain it, no obvious rupture, no visible collapse. It simply happens. One day you realize you're still moving, but you no longer feel fully inside what you're doing. You keep fulfilling your duties. You keep responding. You keep making decisions. From the outside, nothing appears out of place. Yet, when you look inward, meaning no longer shows itself with the same clarity. You can't point to the problem precisely, but you sense the absence. Something that was once there is now harder to find. This feeling doesn't shout or demand immediate attention. It settles quietly. It accompanies your days without interrupting them. That's why it's so easy to ignore. That's why so many people go on for years without stopping to face it directly. It doesn't always resemble sadness. Sometimes it's mistaken for exhaustion, apathy, or a simple lack of motivation. Other times, it takes the form of a constant question that never fully gets asked, a soft, persistent discomfort that appears in moments of silence. You might recognize yourself in the idea of living on autopilot, doing what needs to be done without asking too much why. Responding to what's urgent while what's important keeps getting postponed. Not because it doesn't matter, but because you don't quite know where to begin looking at it. Feeling this way can be confusing, especially when, in theory, there are no clear reasons to feel unwell. You've achieved things. You've moved through stages. You've reached places that once felt far away. And yet, something still doesn't quite fit. This often creates a contradictory feeling. On one hand, gratitude. On the other, emptiness. You wonder if it's legitimate to feel this way. If you're exaggerating, if you should simply accept it and keep going. But this experience doesn't come from ingratitude or weakness. It often arises from a mismatch between the life you're living and who you are now. Because people change, and life doesn't always change at the same pace. Sometimes we keep holding on to structures that worked in another time, decisions that made sense to an earlier version of ourselves, paths that were coherent when we chose them, but no longer speak to who we are today. This mismatch doesn't always reveal itself right away. It shows up gradually, in the lack of enthusiasm, in the difficulty imagining the future, in the sense of occupying a place that never fully feels like your own. We live in an environment that rewards certainty, one that expects clear answers, defined goals, and firm directions. In that context, doubt feels like a problem. Admitting you don't know where you're going can seem like a setback, but in reality, it can be the opposite. There are moments when losing your sense of direction is a sign that something inside is being reorganized, not outwardly, but inwardly. It's the symptom of a consciousness that no longer settles for moving forward without meaning. Many people arrive at this point after spending too long oriented toward the outside, meeting others' expectations, comparing themselves, measuring their lives by standards they didn't choose, responding to models of living that never truly felt like their own. Others arrive here after a major change, a loss, an ending, a transition that exposes questions that previously had no space. When what once defined your identity disappears, the emptiness doesn't always fill itself right away. And then there is exhaustion, deep exhaustion, not only physical, but mental and emotional. Living in a state of constant demand eventually disconnects us from ourselves. When everything is urgent, nothing feels truly meaningful. Feeling lost, in this context, is not a failure, it's a reaction. It's the result of having moved forward for a long time without stopping to listen to what was happening inside. The problem isn't being here. The problem is ignoring it indefinitely. Acknowledging this feeling takes courage. It means admitting that the answers that once worked are no longer enough, that certainties have become fragile, and that meaning no longer resides where it used to. But it also holds an opportunity, because only those who accept not knowing can truly begin to search. Tonight, we're not going to rush that process. We won't demand definitions or force conclusions. The goal isn't to find an immediate solution, but to create the inner space needed for something new to emerge. Accepting that you feel lost doesn't mean giving up. It means stopping the pretense, allowing yourself to pause without guilt, to listen without correcting, to look at yourself without judgment. Before moving in any direction, it's necessary to recognize where you are. And if right now you are here with this diffuse feeling, with this open question, there is nothing wrong with that. There is something alive in you that is still seeking coherence. And that, far from being a problem, is a sign that you are still awake. Stay. In the next part, we will gradually prepare the body and the mind for rest, creating a deeper space of calm from which to continue. For now, this is enough, to recognize that you don't have all the answers and to allow yourself to be at peace with that truth. Now that you've recognized where you are, there is no need to think further. There is nothing to understand or resolve. This moment is not for the analytical mind. It is for the body, for allowing it to rest, to loosen, and to stop holding on. Find the position that feels most comfortable for sleeping. There is no correct posture. There is only the one that, right now, allows you to feel a little more relief. Adjust your body gently. Allow small movements until you reach the point where you no longer need to move. When you're ready, close your eyes. Don't close them forcefully. Let them fall, as if the weight of the day were slowly sliding downward. Allow your eyelids to rest without effort. Nothing more. We're going to begin with the breath, not to control it, but to accompany it. Inhale slowly through the nose. Let the air descend into the abdomen. Allow the belly to rise while the chest remains calm. There is no rush. There is no goal. Just air coming in. When you no longer need to inhale, hold the breath for a moment. Then exhale through the mouth, slowly, as if releasing a long, silent sigh. Again, inhale calmly. The abdomen gently expands. Hold for a few seconds, and exhale without hurry. With each exhalation, imagine that something loosens inside you. You don't need to know what it is. Just allow it to happen. Once more, inhale. Feel the air occupying space within you. Hold briefly and release, allowing the body to sink a little deeper into the surface that supports it. Now continue breathing naturally. Don't force the rhythm. Observe the gentle movement of the abdomen. Each breath anchors you a little more in the present. Here, now, bring your attention to your feet. Feel how they rest. Don't do anything to relax them. Simply observe them. Allow the weight to settle, as if gravity were doing its work without resistance. The feet loosen. They are no longer holding anything. Relaxation slowly rises through the ankles, the calves, and the knees. The muscles of the legs begin to release, not all at once. That's fine. Each one finds its own rhythm. Feel the legs becoming heavier, more stable, as if they were fully surrendering to rest. They no longer need to move. They no longer need to respond. Now, bring your attention to the hips, the glutes, to that whole area that often accumulates tension without us noticing. Allow it to relax. Feel the weight. Feel the support. There is nothing to hold. Direct your attention now to the abdomen. Observe how it moves with each breath. Allow the muscles to soften even more. There is no need to maintain control. Here you can let go. Here you can rest. The chest remains calm. It makes no effort. It breathes without demands. The heart beats at its own rhythm, steady and stable. Attention moves to the back, beginning with the lower part. The muscles relax little by little, as if a slow wave were rising along the spine. Each vertebra finds rest. Each muscle releases its tension. The shoulders loosen. They drop. They no longer carry unnecessary weight. Allow them to fall, to soften, to rest. Now the arms. First the right arm, the forearm, the hand, the fingers. Observe the weight. Observe the stillness. The entire right arm rests. Then the left arm, the forearm, the hand, the fingers. The weight is pleasant. There is no effort. There is no tension. Bring your attention to the neck. Allow it to loosen, to stop holding. The head is fully supported. Trust the support. You don't need to keep it upright. Relax the jaw. Let it part slightly. The tongue rests. The cheeks soften. The eyelids feel heavy. The forehead smooths. The entire face enters rest. In this moment, your body has learned something important. It doesn't need to stay alert. It doesn't need to anticipate. It can let go, return to the breath. Inhale, exhale. With each exhalation, you sink a little deeper into rest. Now, imagine a small light in the center of your chest. It is not intense or intrusive. It is soft, warm, and steady. A calm point that is simply there. With each inhalation, that light slowly expands. It doesn't push or invade. It grows naturally, like a gentle presence. The light envelops the heart, then the chest. It continues to grow, surrounding the torso, the shoulders, the arms, the hands. Feel its temperature. It doesn't burn. It comforts. The light keeps expanding. It surrounds the abdomen, the hips, the legs, the feet. The entire body rests within this soft, protective sphere. Finally, the light surrounds the head, the neck, the face. You are completely enveloped. Within this space, there are no demands. There is no past. There is no future. There are no decisions to make. Only this moment. Here, you can stay. Here, you are safe. Here, you don't need to do anything. Breathe. Allow the body to remain in this state. If a thought appears, don't fight it. Let it pass, like a cloud crossing the sky. your attention can return again and again to the breath, to the weight of the body, to the sensation of being supported. Rest is not forced. It happens when we stop interfering. Stay here a few moments longer. The body knows what it needs to do. In the next stage, when the mind is even quieter, we can begin to gently observe what brought you here, without harsh analysis, without judgment, only understanding. For now, rest, breathe, allow silence to do its part. When the body rests and the mind grows quiet, some questions emerge with greater clarity. They don't arrive as demands, but as invitations. They don't seek immediate answers. They ask for understanding. This is the moment to calmly observe what it means to feel lost and why that sensation appears. It isn't always easy to recognize this state. Many times it disguises itself. It may show up as a lack of energy, as persistent apathy, as a feeling of being constantly tired without a clear cause. You wake up, fulfill your obligations, move forward by inertia, but enthusiasm doesn't follow. Nothing truly excites you. What once sparked interest now feels distant or unfamiliar. At other times, disorientation appears as restlessness. You can't explain what's happening, but something doesn't fit. A subtle tension arises, an inner knot that doesn't go away. The mind circles endlessly. Repeated questions surface, whether this is what you want, whether you're where you should be, whether at some point you drifted away from yourself. There are no clear answers, only a persistent underlying feeling. It's also common to look back and notice a contrast. You remember earlier versions of yourself, with more enthusiasm, more curiosity, more momentum. And when you look ahead, the future becomes blurred, not because it doesn't exist, but because it's hard to imagine clearly. Certainties dissolve, purposes lose their strength. Feeling this way is not an anomaly. It's part of the human experience. Throughout life, we go through moments of readjustment, reevaluation, internal transformation. The problem isn't going through them, it's not understanding them. One of the most common causes of this feeling is a lack of purpose. Human beings need reasons to move forward. They don't have to be grand or final, but they do need to be meaningful: a project, a passion, a relationship, a goal that connects us to the desire to continue. When that thread breaks or weakens, direction becomes uncertain. Another common cause is the weight of expectations. We live in a society that proposes clear, predefined paths: study, work, progress, complete stages, achieve certain milestones. When reality doesn't match that script, a sense of failure emerges. Yet many times that script was never truly ours. We've spent years trying to fulfill ideals that weren't chosen by us, and the cost is internal disconnection. We also lose our sense of direction when we spend too much time comparing ourselves to others. Constant exposure to seemingly perfect lives creates a permanent feeling of inadequacy. We measure our worth by external standards, without stopping to ask whether what we admire is truly what we want. Comparison wears us down, clouds judgment, and weakens self-esteem. Another source of disorientation is living turned outward. Filling the agenda with activities, commitments, stimuli, and distractions can be a way to avoid contact with inner emptiness. Purchases, plans, goals, relationships that don't connect with what's essential. A lot of movement, very little direction. When the noise stops, the sensation returns with greater force. Major changes also play an important role. Losses, breakups, moves, career changes, endings of life stages. Sometimes life turns without warning and leaves us without reference points. What once defined us disappears, and with it, identity begins to tremble. We don't know who we are without what is no longer there. The future presents itself as a blank space, one that can feel intimidating. A lack of planning can intensify this feeling. Living without even a minimal long-term orientation creates insecurity. Moving forward without a clear idea of where you want to go makes every decision feel heavier than it needs to be. Everything feels provisional, unstable, fragile. Emotional and mental exhaustion is another determining factor. Prolonged stress, information overload, and constant pressure to perform and adapt wear down the capacity for reflection. When you are exhausted, thinking clearly becomes difficult. Confusion grows. Everything seems more complex than it truly is. There are also more internal causes. Spending little time listening to yourself, constantly postponing your own needs, not allowing spaces of silence, pause, or contact with what you feel. Over time, this disconnection takes its toll. Insecurity and fear also play a role. Fear of making mistakes, fear of failure, even fear of success and the responsibilities that come with it. To avoid these risks, many people remain in familiar zones, even when those zones no longer provide meaning. Comfort, then, becomes a silent prison. And there is a factor that is rarely mentioned, yet has a deep impact: forgetting finitude, not thinking of time as something limited. This is not about living obsessed with death, but about remembering that time is not infinite. When that awareness is lost, what matters is postponed. Life is lived as if there will always be a later, until one day, the feeling of having drifted away from oneself appears. If you recognize any of these reasons, there is nothing that needs to be fixed immediately. Understanding is the first step. Naming what is happening allows you to stop fighting against it. Disorientation, seen this way, stops being an enemy and becomes a signal that something needs attention, that certain decisions need to be reviewed, that some values need to be heard again, not as a demand, but as an invitation. This moment of understanding does not seek blame or culprits. It is not about judging the past, but about understanding the present. From there, any future change will be more conscious, more aligned, more your own. In the next part, we will focus on how to begin reorienting yourself gently, without haste, without grand promises, step by step. For now, this is enough. To understand that feeling lost has causes, and that understanding them is already part of the path. Understanding what is happening inside you is important, but it is not the end. It is the beginning. From here on, the question is no longer why you feel lost, but how to begin walking again without violence, without unnecessary demands, without turning the process into another source of pressure. Reorienting yourself does not mean changing everything immediately. It does not require radical decisions or reinventing your life overnight. Very often, true change begins quietly, almost imperceptibly, in the way you relate to yourself. The first step is acceptance. Accepting where you are now, without comparing yourself to past versions of yourself or to other people's paths. Accepting that this moment is part of your process, that it is not a mistake to be erased, but a stage that needs to be crossed with attention and care. Acceptance is not resignation. It is stopping the fight against what already is. When resistance decreases, energy is freed, and that energy can begin to move toward what truly matters. The next step is to look inward with honesty, to ask yourself calmly, what is valuable to you at this moment in your life? Not what should be important, not what others expect, but what, when you think about it, restores a sense of inner coherence, values, interests, and needs that may have been pushed aside for too long. You may discover that some goals no longer represent you, that certain ideals no longer resonate. That does not mean you have failed. It means you have changed. And change is an inevitable part of being alive. From that initial clarity, it becomes possible to take small steps, not big turns, small, everyday adjustments, simple decisions that bring you a little closer to a life aligned with who you are now. A change in habit, space for something you enjoy, a boundary you didn't set before, a pending conversation, time reserved for yourself. These steps, even if modest, have a cumulative effect. They restore a sense of direction not because the path is fully mapped out, but because you begin to feel that you are moving forward from a place that is truly your own. It is important to redefine what you understand by success. Many times, the feeling of being lost comes from pursuing goals that did not originate within you. Success is not always about accumulating visible achievements. Sometimes it is about living with more calm, greater coherence, and less inner noise. Allow yourself to explore without the obligation to get it right. Learn something new. Try different experiences. Gradually step outside the familiar zone, not as an extreme challenge, but as a way to reconnect with curiosity. Exploration does not guarantee immediate answers, but it opens possibilities. Connection with other people also plays a fundamental role. Sharing what you feel, listening to other perspectives, feeling accompanied. Isolation tends to intensify disorientation. The presence of others can bring clarity, support, and new ways of seeing. Caring for the body is another essential part of the process. Getting enough sleep, eating consciously, moving your body, breathing. Physical state directly influences mental and emotional clarity. When the body is exhausted, life feels heavier than it truly is. Accepting uncertainty is perhaps one of the most difficult and at the same time most liberating lessons. Life does not offer definitive maps. No one has all the answers. And that does not make you less capable or less valuable. It makes you human. Instead of fighting what you cannot control, you can focus on what is within your reach. Your thoughts, your words, your actions, the present, this moment, the next possible step. Cultivating patience is essential. Inner processes do not follow strict timelines. There are slow advances, setbacks, doubts that return. All of that is part of the path. It is not a straight line. It is a living journey. If at any point the weight feels too heavy, asking for help is a valid option. Speaking with a professional can offer tools and support throughout this process. It is not a sign of weakness, but of responsibility toward yourself. Feeling lost does not have to be permanent. It is a temporary state, a message, a pause, an invitation to stop, to look, to readjust. In your hands lies the possibility of beginning a more conscious, more personal, more aligned path. Right now, in this moment, you do not need to resolve anything. You have done enough for today. You have looked inward. You have understood. That alone is already an important movement. Allow these ideas to settle without effort. Do not hold on to them. Do not analyze them further. Rest is also part of the process. Let the body continue to relax. Let the breath find its natural rhythm. Let the mind gradually quiet. Perhaps some answers will come tomorrow, or in a few days, or while you walk, or while you write, or in an unexpected moment. There is no need to force them. What matters most is not finding the right path immediately, but finding yourself again. When that happens, everything else begins to fall into place, step by step, in its own time. Now, it is time to rest. May sleep gently envelop you. May the night offer you calm. May tomorrow you wake up a little closer to yourself. Good night. Now rest. Trust the process. Sleep organizes what today does not need an answer. Good night.